The summer I turned 23 started like any other, lazy days blending into warm evenings, the kind where the air smells like cut grass and possibility. I had just graduated college, armed with a degree I wasn't sure I wanted to use and a heart that felt strangely hollow despite all the congratulations and celebrations. I decided to escape to a small coastal town a few hours away from home, renting a tiny beach cottage with savings I'd scraped together from part-time jobs. It was meant to be a reset, a place to figure out who I was when no one was watching or expecting anything from me. The first few days were quiet. I walked the shoreline alone, collected shells that caught the light just right, and watched the sun dip below the horizon every evening from the same weathered bench at the end of the boardwalk. Those sunsets were breathtaking, streaks of orange and pink bleeding into purple, the ocean swallowing the light like it was something precious it wanted to keep forever. I'd sit there with a cheap bottle of wine, letting the colors wash over me, wondering why something so beautiful could feel so lonely when experienced by yourself. One evening, as the sky turned a deeper shade of crimson, I noticed someone else on the bench a few feet away. He was sketching in a worn notebook, his dark hair falling into his eyes every time he leaned forward. He looked up, caught me staring, and smiled, not the polite kind, but the kind that reaches the eyes and makes you feel seen for the first time in a long while. His name was Luca, an artist traveling through towns along the coast, capturing moments he said most people were too busy to notice. We started talking about the sunset, how everyone is different yet somehow the same, and before I knew it, hours had passed and the stars were out. That conversation felt effortless, like we'd known each other longer than a single evening. The next day, he found me on the beach again, and we walked for miles, talking about everything and nothing, dreams we were afraid to admit out loud, places we wanted to see, the way certain songs make your chest ache in the best way. There was an electricity between us, something light and fleeting, the kind you know won't last but can't resist anyway. We spent the following weeks in a blur of sunsets and laughter. He taught me how to see light and shadow the way an artist does, how to find beauty in the ordinary, while I showed him the hidden coves and the best spot for stargazing. We cooked simple dinners on the cottage porch, danced barefoot to music from his old portable speaker, and fell into each other like it was the most natural thing in the world. It was a summer fling in every classic sense, passionate, intense, and unapologetically temporary. He never promised forever, and neither did I. We both knew he'd move on to the next town when inspiration called, and I'd eventually go back to the life waiting for me. But in those moments, none of that mattered. Every sunset we watched together felt like a small eternity, the colors more vibrant because they were reflected in his eyes too. I started to feel parts of myself waking up that I didn't even know had been asleep, braver, softer, more open to the unpredictability of life. He encouraged me to write again, something I'd abandoned after college told me it wasn't practical. Late at night, I'd scribble poems about the way the waves sounded like whispers, or how his laugh made the whole world feel lighter. With him, I wasn't the cautious, overthinking person I'd always been. I was someone who could leap without looking, who could love fiercely even when she knew the ending. As the days grew shorter and the air carried the first hints of autumn, I felt the shift coming. We both did. The conversations turned quieter, more reflective, laced with the unspoken understanding that this chapter was closing. One final evening, we sat on that same bench, watching what would be our last sunset together. The sky exploded in fiery reds and golds, more dramatic than any we'd seen before, as if the universe wanted to give us a proper send-off. He held my hand, and we didn't say much, words felt too small for what we were feeling. When the sun disappeared and the first stars appeared, he kissed me slowly, like he was memorizing the moment. The next morning, he was gone, leaving only a sketch of me watching the horizon tucked under the cottage door. I stood there for a long time, holding the drawing, feeling the ache of goodbye settle in my chest. But beneath the sadness was something else, something bright and steady. That summer with Luca didn't just give me memories, it gave me back pieces of myself I'd lost along the way. In the weeks after Luca left, the cottage felt too quiet, the sunsets too vast for one person again. I'd sit on the bench alone, tracing the place where his hand had rested, wondering if I'd imagined how alive I'd felt beside him. But slowly, something remarkable began to happen. I didn't shrink back into the person I'd been before. Instead, I carried him with me, not as a lingering heartbreak, but as proof that I was capable of feeling deeply, of living boldly even when it scared me. I started painting with the cheap watercolors he'd left behind, clumsy attempts at capturing the light he'd taught me to see. The results were terrible at first, but the act of creating felt like breathing after holding my breath for years. I filled pages with color and shape, not caring about perfection, only about expression. Back home when summer ended, I didn't slide quietly into the expected job or the safe choices. I applied for a writing residency I'd always thought was out of reach, and when I got accepted, I moved across the country without a second thought. The girl who used to overplan every step now trusted the pull of her own heart. Years later, I can still close my eyes and feel that coastal air, taste the salt on my lips from those endless kisses, hear the waves that carried our laughter out to sea. Luca and I never stayed in touch, we didn't exchange numbers